Live now. Yeah. Hi folks, not sure. I hope you can see me and hear me. Clearly I am here this week, and in a second Katriona Marshall, who's the owner of Running Bear, is going to come on and interview me. At the moment, oh yes, I can see Ross is there and Louise. It's good to see you, and Justine. Welcome guys. So hopefully we're going to be on for around 30 minutes maybe, and Kat's just getting set up, but they were very keen to get me here in person, as I didn't quite make it last week. So just welcoming people who are turning up now. I can see Karen, welcome to Karen, and Joy and Josh there, good to see you. I'm sitting in the Running Bear shop. You can see some great shoes behind me, and just making a bit of small talk and drinking water whilst waiting for Kat. Last week they were waiting for me. Tonight I'm just waiting for Kat. Hi there, Rick and Debbie. I think Claire Holcroft wants to get in. Not quite sure why she's not getting in there. Hopefully she will. And yeah, I'm going to be talking about fell running tonight, and all kinds of stuff. If you're interested in fell running or getting into it, you want to know a bit more about it, maybe some of the iconic challenges and all that kind of stuff, then hi Claire, this is for you. So is Kat coming on? Yeah, can we let, okay. Yeah, so is Kat's coming? Hi Kat.
Hey,
Good
Running Bear has the technology. We've done it. Great. Geoff, I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Finally
Might need a bit more volume here. Is that possible? No. Okay. Can you hear me okay, Kat?
I hear you perfectly. Great. And
Fantastic.
hopefully, most importantly, everybody else can. So, Geoff, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for welcoming me. We're going to be talking all things fell running. So this is really targeted at anybody who's a fell runner, who's done some fell running, interested in doing it, and we might even be able to convert a few road runners over to the fells with your passion and knowledge about it. So Geoff, a little bit of background about Geoff. He's been a passionate fell runner for many, many years, and in fact more years than Running Bear, because a lovely little fact about Geoff is that he actually set up Running Bear.
I've lost Kat. I've lost Kat. She's just being added now. Which ones is it? Me that's the main one, or her? I'm not sure if you guys can hear me or Kat. At the moment, I cannot hear Kat. The wonders of technology. If I can't hear her soon, maybe I should just talk about fell running. So let's see what's going on there. Okay. I think Kat's coming down here. So the technology isn't working very well. So Kat's going to sit with me, which is great. Have you got a chair?
I've got a chair, I've got my mouse.
Yeah. So we're going to do it very simply here.
That's great. Okay. I'm here. Okay. I'm sitting socially distanced from you.
This is Kat's mug of tea.
A Running Bear mug of tea. Right. Geoff, how far did you get? How did we get through my introduction?
You were just telling me I've been running for a long time and that I set up Running Bear just over 30 years ago.
That's right. Not only Running Bear, but later you set up My Cop Fell Runners.
Yeah. Do you want me to look at you or at the camera?
Yeah, look at the camera.
I'm going to look at the camera.
Look at your lovely audience. You can see we're very polished in this. We'll get there. And a very iconic race in the Northwest, one of my favourites, the Killer Mile.
Yes, the Killer Mile, that's something which was set up by ICL over 30 years ago, but we took it on, Malcop Runners took it on, I think about 3 or 4 years ago now. And I think we've run it about 3 times, and obviously would have done last year and would have done this year, but unfortunately it's not been possible. But it will be on again, probably in 2022, I would imagine, hopefully.
And the name says all, it's just 1 mile.
Yeah, it's the guy who launched it, a guy called John Britton, called it the Fell Runner's Revenge, because it's a 1 mile road race straight uphill. It's like 600 and something feet, so over 200 meters of ascent in 1 mile, and it's an absolute killer. I know it's not a fell race, but it is a killer. If you haven't tried it, then have a go, maybe next year, if not this year.
And all you have to do is keep on running.
Yeah, it gets harder and harder as you get up the thing. Yeah.
So let's talk about how you got started in fell running. You've clearly been doing it since you were a young lad, many years ago. So what got you started?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this, and when I think about it, it was long distance walking that got me into it. And I actually, even at the age of 10 and 11, I was doing 21-mile sponsored walks with the Cubs, based in Hazel Grove, Wesley Street, Methodist Church. And at the age of 17, I walked the Pennine Way with a couple of mates, just went and did it. By 19, I'd done the Bullock Smithy, which is a 56-mile hike. So, from a very young age, that I can't explain it, but something about doing long mountain walks or hill walks just appealed to me. And I got into the Long Distance Walkers Association in the early 80s, and we started just running. We were doing long distance walks, but we ran downhill, we ran on the top, and that's something that I've carried on doing all the time in those ultras, is basically often walk the hills and then run the tops and run downhill. And my first ever, I would say my first proper fell race was an ultra called the Haworth Hobble, which some of you might know. It's about 33 miles long. It is what it says on the can. It's in Haworth in West Yorkshire, and it's a great race, and it's still going on today. It started off as one of those ones which was for walkers and runners. These days it's very much runners, and a lot of ultra distance fell and trail runners do it. So that's in early March, and obviously won't be happening this year. So get your entries in for next year. It's a great race, a bit more of a trail race, but some fell stuff on it as well.
So that's interesting, Geoff, because trail running is very popular at the moment, and lots of people, which is great, piling into trail running. What's the difference between fell running and trail running?
I think that's a great question. Back in the day when I started, my first ever fell race was 1985. But at that time, trail running didn't really exist, if I'm honest, or barely existed, whereas fell running is a very traditional, people have been running up their local fell or local hill or mountain literally for hundreds of years, and there are clear records of local community races happening with fell running, whereas trail running has become much more popular in recent years. And back in the day, certainly in the late 80s, early 90s, in Britain, we saw trail running and fell running as completely different disciplines. More recently, and I don't know if it's come from the States, the word trail running has started to become more generic, like it's any kind of off-road running, not cross-country, but anything else. And then fell running seen as a kind of subset of trail running. But there are, in my mind, and in reality, there are some key differences between pure trail running and pure fell running, although there is a grey area and a kind of crossover. But some of the key differences would be that fell running definitely has its own culture and tradition. It's certainly not a glamorous activity. Trail running is often very glamorous, all the flags, big prizes, lots of social media, often organised by professional organisations with big sponsorship. It follows trails. Fell running, you can go where you like, really. I mean, in a lot of fell races, you have controls that you need to visit, but the route you take to controls is down to you. The terrain is different. In fell running, which actually in Scotland they call hill running, and some people would refer to certain types of fell running as mountain running, you're on much rougher, much steeper terrain. You could be taking a straight line, you could be going over bogs, tussocks, rocks, through anything, you know, thistles get ripped apart, and you end up with the race, you know, kind of covered in blood, mud, and all that kind of stuff, and not looking particularly glamorous.
And it's governed by the Fell Running Association.
Yeah, the Fell Running Association is the governing body affiliated to England and UK athletics. In England, there are subsidiary other bodies in the other nations of the UK. But in England, the Fell Running Association is the main body. It has, you know, some of the rules it has, for example, which now differentiate it even more from what we call trail running, is they recently actually banned all use of GPS navigational devices because it's not within the tradition of fell running, so to speak. So all those people who use their phone or maybe their super duper expensive Garmin with a little map on to navigate yourself around, you've downloaded the route, you're not allowed to do that at all in fell running anymore. Whereas in trail races and trail running, that's just part of the course, you know. Everybody does it. A lot of the trail running organisers give you the GPX file, and you can just follow that route on your whatever app you're using, or indeed on your watch. But that's not allowed in fell running. So I think fell running is, you need some mountain craft in fell running. It's not just about going for a run like you would on maybe a 10K, a half marathon, or a trail half marathon. You need to learn something about the mountains and how to navigate and get yourself safely around that kind of environment. And that takes a little bit of time. So becoming an experienced fell runner does take time and learning from your fellow fell runners. Maybe by joining the Fell Runners Association, you'll gain a lot of knowledge and experience just through doing that, and information which is really useful.
And what about starter races for people starting out in fell running where they don't have to navigate?
Yeah, there's a lot of those locally. So there's a whole load of races I would recommend. For example, there's one called Bowstones, which goes up to Bowstones in Lyme Park, and it starts at a pub in Higher Poynton called the Boar's Head, I think it is. Not quite sure what time of year that is these days. It's a very long established fell race, but it has partial marking on it, and it's not something that's going to require a great amount of navigation. The fell race I organise, a bit of a plug for that, the Malcop Hill Race, or the Malcop Fell Race. That's 6.5 miles, or about 11K. And that's, you know, we partially mark it. We've got some marshals out there, and it's not a difficult one. It's got about 1,400 feet of ascent, 400 meters of ascent if you in modern parlance, and it'd be really suitable for people who are new to fell running.
And how many people partake in that, Geoff? Is there plenty of people in front to follow?
Yeah, I mean the numbers vary tremendously. In the Boar's Head, you might get perhaps 250, 300. My race is a lot more low key. And that's another contrast with trail running races. To do my race and most fell races, a lot of them you enter on the day. Mine's £5. It's a great value. And yeah, whereas if you enter a trail race, well, it costs about 20, 30 or more pounds. You know, some of them are crazy prices. So again, that's because the fell races are put on by volunteers, and they're just cheap. You know, you get masses for your money, you get free tea and coffee, and you can buy some lovely cakes, and we have a full price set. But very amenable for newer fell runners or people who want to just dip the toe in the water.
And where do you find
Teg's
out
Nose is another one, if I could mention that. Yeah. Teg's Nose, which is organised by some of the Macclesfield Harriers, who've got a great fell running tradition. Yeah, that's a great one, which is associated with sheepdog trials. And a lot of the fell races have that kind of community, rural, traditional culture, and being associated with some kind of fete or sheepdog trials or that kind of stuff is quite common, and makes it more of a family day out if you want to take the family with you as well, so you don't lose any brownie points.
So where do you find out about all these races?
The best place to find out about fell races is literally through the Fell Runners Association. So if you just Google Fell Runners Association, or indeed Fell Runner, the Fell Runners website will come up, and they have an online diary of all races. Right now it's a bit sparse, I have to say, but I got an email from the Fell Runners Association yesterday, and saying that they're with the new kind of dates that Boris has put out, that they're keen to get things going later this year as we move into April, May, that kind of time. So keep your eyes out, watch social media. The Fell Runners Association do have a social media group. I know there's one on Facebook. I'm sure they're on other social media platforms as well. So log on to the Fell Runners Association and check out. I'm sure some of those races will be appearing almost as I'm speaking, because there's a lot of very passionate people keen to put those on this year if possible.
So you turn up for your first race. Now there's some rules around kit. So what are the rules around kit? So the essential, and also what are your recommendations for kit? So
yeah, the Fell Runners Association has some rules around kit, and they do vary a bit depending on the standard of the race, which is something I know we were going to chat about. So this might be a good point just to say that there are different classes of fell races, and they're classed according to steepness. So the steepest ones are given an A grade or an A class. The middle ones are given a B, and the ones that aren't so steep and a bit more like trail type races, really, if I'm honest, are given a C grade. And then they're also graded according to the distance. So the longest distance is long, and the medium is medium, and the short is short. Short means less than 10k. Long means more than 20k. So that just gives you an idea of the kind of grading of the fell races. For example, the hardest grade would be an AL. So very steep, very rough terrain, long, more than 20k.
Give us an example of a race.
Okay, a local one would be the Edale Skyline, which goes right round the kind of Derwent watershed, well, most of the Derwent watershed, not all of it. It's not one of the hardest nationally, but it's one of the local AL races. Talking more nationally, and some which are really hard, Wasdale up in the lakes is it's got 9,000 feet of ascent, so that's sort of 3,000 meters of ascent, and it's about 21 miles, and it goes over all the main lakeland peaks, including your Scarfells and you know, your Great Gables, all this kind of stuff. And
how long would a race like that take you, Geoff?
Well, it's a bit like how long's a piece of string, really. So when I was young and fit, I personally did Wasdale back in a long time ago, 1989, 1990, in about 4 hours 50. I also did it about 2.5 years ago, and it took me 6 hours 50. So in a race like that, you're looking at a big mountain day out, and you need that kit, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And you actually need some food as well, because 6 hours 50 is a heck of a long time to be out in the mountains. And if you're going to be out for long periods in that kind of environment, you're going to need really good clothing to protect yourself, because your big enemy is hypothermia. Okay, sometimes it's the sun and it's going to be crazy hot, but actually mountain weather and hill weather is renowned for changing quite rapidly. So the Fell Runners advice, it's not just advice actually, it's compulsory kit requirement for an AL race, is that you have to carry full waterproofs, and they need to be with taped seams, and the waterproof jacket needs to have a hood. So you need to carry all of those, top and bottoms. You need to have hat and gloves. You need to have a whistle, so you can give the emergency call if you get perhaps stranded on your own, or you go over on your ankle, or you're in the mist. By the way, that emergency whistle is 6 blasts, and then a minute. You leave it a minute or about a minute, then you give another 6 blasts. And this enables people to come and locate you. That's the kind of emergency call. Also in the kit would be emergency food, a map, and a compass. And that's the essential kit, which if you're doing an AL race, a BL, an AM, it's compulsory to carry that kit. They have kit checks. If you're not carrying it, you'll be kit checked at the end, particularly if you're in a prize winning category. And if you haven't got it, you'll be disqualified. And in the championship races and the British Fell Relays, it's no kit or not the right kit, and you're simply disqualified. For some of the lesser races, such as mine, which is a BM race, so it's medium steepness and medium length, It's down to the race organizer based on the conditions on the day. And typically, mine's usually in April, you know, I might say take a waterproof jacket, or if the weather's grim, jacket and trousers. And you know, that'll probably, you'll get away with that, to be honest. So shoes are obviously crucial. And you know, behind me you can see some shoes, and some of them there to this side here are off-road shoes. So we've got some trail shoes there, we've got some fell running shoes. And really for for fell running, it depends a bit on how far you're going. Are you racing? You know, is it an eyeballs out race? Is it a longer race, or is it a longer run or a training run? But for example, if I was doing a short fell race, I would want something that's pretty light, that's not got much cushioning in the midsole, because I want to feel really in touch with the ground, and I want to have some big studs that are really going to grip in the mud and grip in the grass. And you know, there are the ones that most people wear these days would be innovates, like your mud claws or your cross talons, X talons, those kind of things. Back in the day, we all wore Walshes. You can still get them actually. And there are other brands as well, but you're looking for great grip, particularly on mud and slimy grass and that kind of stuff. One of the big treacherous things, there's quite a few in fell running, but wet rock is something that I wouldn't say any shoes have really cracked that one. And the best thing to do with wet rock is either avoid it if you can, if at all possible, or just really take it carefully, because it's so slippery that it's the one thing you really don't want to fall on. If you were going a bit longer, then you'd probably want a bit more weight and a bit more cushioning. If it had a bit more trail in, then you don't want the great big studs particularly. It will perhaps want smaller studs or a different kind of grip, like you might get on the Saucony Peregrines or that kind of thing. So yeah, but you need the right kind of shoe for the kind of activity you're going to undertake. It's crucial, yeah.
So Geoff, you mentioned a couple of tough races there. What's been your favourite challenge in fell running? Not necessarily your hardest race, but what's been your favourite challenge?
Well, favourite's an interesting word, isn't it? Because one of the challenges, challenges about fell running is there's a lot of challenges in fell running, a lot. Some of them are mental, some of them are physical, some of them are navigational, some of them are about getting the right kit, and some of them are about making sure you're carrying, if you like, the minimum kit for the conditions. And when we say favourite, sometimes fell running can be what we call type 2 enjoyment, right? I don't know if you know this thing. Type 1 enjoyment is when you really enjoy it, when you're doing it. And you do get that in fell running. But there are occasions where it's so challenging, it's so tough, that actually it's kind of type 2 enjoyment. Well, there might be moments of enjoyment, but actually most of that enjoyment comes later on in the pub when you're talking about it and you're out of the weather. And one of my favourite, if you like, things I've done like that is probably when I was 50. I did something which some people call 50 at 50. And this is an extended Bob Graham, which I think we perhaps want to talk about, Kat, at some point. The Bob Graham round is a round of 42 peaks. And by a round, I mean you start at one place, in this case, Keswick Moot Hall. You have 24 hours, and there are 42 peaks that you need to get up and down and back to your starting point in 24 hours. This is a very, I was going to say, it is popular, but it's regarded as one of the ultimate fell running challenges in this country. And indeed, it's gained international repute, with people like Kilian Jornet, famous Catalan Spanish runner, breaking the record about 12 months ago and breaking a very long-standing record on the Bob Graham round. Around 2,500 people have achieved the Bob Graham round in under 24 hours. Many, many more, thousands more have failed to do it. I did that many years ago, a long time ago, when I was in my 20s actually. But when I was 50, I did it again and added 8 extra peaks to the 42. So it gave you that nice symmetry of being older and more decrepit at the age of 50, but making the round itself harder. So that was something which was very challenging for lots and lots of reasons, but ultimately successful in that I got round it with the help and support of some great friends and running colleagues, and that's part of what fell running is about for me. It's about that fell running community and the spirit of fell running. It's because it's possibly, some people would say it's a slightly strange hobby in some ways. There's a very close-knit community. You know, if you're a fell runner, even a beginning fell runner, I think you'll find yourself very welcomed into that community.
Well, just on that one,
I'm sorry, I'm rabbiting on a bit.
There's a little note there from James Mcmurdo. Always a welcome. There's always a welcome gang to greet anybody at Mac Harriers in their fell running section. So anybody, any new fell runners or potential new fell runners, Mac Harriers there to welcome you. Thank you very much, James.
Absolutely. I'd just like to chip in there, Kat, because I actually, James might not know this, but I've been a Macclesfield Harrier for over 30 years, and I'm first claim Malcott Runners, which is a club I helped to establish about 12 years ago. But I've got very, very fond memories and still get out with some of the Mac Harriers. The battery's getting low on here. I don't know if we need to plug it in. So yeah, great. It's good to go out with a local club, and Mac Harriers is certainly a great one if you want to learn your trade in fell running. Yeah, so I would recommend that.
Fantastic. So we were talking about the rounds.
Yes.
You're being very Little England there, talking about the Bob Graham. What about the Paddy Buckley or the Charlie Ramsey? Are they equally? Yeah,
there are in the United Kingdom. There are regarded sometimes, if you go on a website called GoFar, a lot of people talk about the UK Big Three. These are all 24-hour rounds. The Bob Graham is the most famous in the Lake District. But in Scotland, there is a similar type of round called the Charlie Ramsey round or the Ramsey round, which starts at the youth hostel in Fort William, which is just outside Fort William in the Nevis area, just at the foot of Ben Nevis. And it used to do 24 Munros in 24 hours, but the Ordnance Survey and the Scottish Mountaineering Council, in their wisdom, demoted one of the Munros. So you still have to go over 24 mountains. But it doesn't quite have the right symmetry because it's 23 Munros and another mountain in 24 hours. And that really is a mountain challenge. And it's very rocky, very remote. You always try to get road support on the Bob Graham. There's certain road support points where you can have somebody in a vehicle with food, change your kit. On the Ramsey, there's only one road support point, and you can get people to walk or mountain bike to another point, but it's very remote, very challenging, and the knowledge and experience of it, although it's growing, it's certainly not as great as as it is with the Bob Graham. Most fell running clubs and clubs like Mac Harriers will have lots of people who know about the Bob Graham and can support you with it, whereas in that Scottish Ramsey round, the knowledge, although it's growing, I mean, I did it in '98 and I think I was the 19th person to do it in under 24 hours, and you know, not many people really knew about it.
What would you, if you were to recommend an iconic challenge to fell runners, not necessarily one that you've done yourself, but in their fell running career, what should they work towards as being the pinnacle of their fell running?
There are so many challenges in fell running. You know, the Bob Graham is regarded by many fell runners as probably the iconic long distance challenge in fell running. So to be honest, Kat, it's difficult to see beyond that, because most experienced fell runners, if they can hack the distance, that's something that kind of has a magnetic pull to people. And there's a Bob Graham club. The other rounds, the Paddy Buckley we didn't mention in Wales, it's a similar 47 peak round. They're all similar distances. They're about 60 odd miles with around the height of Everest. So, you know, 28,000 feet or over 8,000 meters of ascent. So they're all similar. To be honest, the Bob Graham is probably slightly the easiest, and the Paddy Buckley and the Ramsey are a little bit harder for a variety of reasons. But yeah, I think the Bob Graham is, for most fell runners, is the ultimate challenge. There are some other longer things which you can do, but that's probably the yardstick I would have thought.
So we've talked a bit about doing races when you were younger and again when you were older. In terms of measuring your performance, have you got better in your age category as you've got older, or have you slipped back in your age category?
So it's a really interesting question, because, and I'm going to, in terms of pure times,
Would you like to share your age with people?
Geoff? Yeah, I'm happy. I'm a V60. I'm 62 years old. So I'm a V60. Actually, I came 12th in the English Fellring Championships 2 years ago, which I'm pretty proud of. I was hoping for the top 10, but do you know what? There's some really fast old so-and-sos out there, I tell you. And when you put yourself up against the best in the country, it's challenging. And to answer Kat's question, back in the day when I was pretty fast actually, and pretty competitive in my 20s and 30s. I would get nowhere in the English or British Championship races. I wouldn't get a placing. It's difficult to score any points because the competition is so great. 40, I didn't on the national stage. Couldn't hack it. Locally, I could win some prizes in local races. 50, yeah, you start to win more prizes in local races. Began to score a few points nationally. 55, that's when it got easier for me. And I think part of the reason is fewer people are competing seriously when they're 55 or 60. It's why? I guess life gets in the way, injury, overuse injuries, maybe the motivation goes, because staying motivated, I've been racing for nearly 40 years, staying motivated, and I still am. People who know me, people who've actually seen me in a race or think I'm going to get past that old so-and-so, they know it's not going to come cheaply. And staying motivated, I think, is one of the biggest things. So I think staying fit, keeping yourself in good condition.
How do you do that? Tell us a bit about how you keep on form. Do you cross-train? Do you look after your diet?
Yeah.
Do you get physio?
Okay, as you're getting older, and I would say anybody getting over 45 is probably getting a bit older. So that includes a lot of the people who I can see watching here. As you're getting older, I think one of the key things is you've got to attempt to avoid injury at all costs. When you're in your 20s, you get injured. Your body, because of your hormones and all that, you can repair that injury quite quickly, and it's not a massive disaster for most people if you're lucky. When you get to 50, 55 or older, you get injured, it can keep you off training for weeks and weeks or months. And when you're not training for that period of time, it's really difficult to get back if you've had that time out. So one of my of advice, probably for any age, but particularly for, like I said, that over 45 year group, is when you've got some kind of tweak coming on, you sometimes people say, I'm going to run through it. Don't run through it. If you're going to do a hard session the next day or something long, don't. Either have a rest day, take it really easy, research the injury. If you think it's something that's not going to sort itself out quickly, go and see a physio, get professional advice. Because the one thing that you don't want to do as an older athlete is get injured, because it can take a long time to get back. So that'd be my first tip. Another one is, when I was younger, and by that I mean probably under 45, I never really did any kind of cross training. I'm just fanatical. I just ran all the time. I was running, and long distances and high mileage, and speed sessions too. Just couldn't get enough of it, and anything else was a distraction. Whereas now, I would say, as you begin to get older, you're doing particularly strength and conditioning, because one of your enemies as you get older, because the hormones change. There's not so much of that testosterone pumping around, the sex hormones in particular. And actually, women have testosterone too, and testosterone is key in muscle building. We start to be challenged by losing muscle mass and gaining body fat. And something we have to work harder at is maintaining and building muscle mass and not gaining body fat. So running helps with that, but actually strength and conditioning, where you're doing weights, both on your lower body, but actually on your upper body as well. there's a lot of research which shows that this helps to stimulate those hormones that are dwindling in us older athletes. If you start doing repetitions of weights, or indeed repetitions in running, so you go and do a lot of runners as they get older, they sort of think, oh, I'll take it a bit easy, I'll run a bit longer and a bit slower. So you run longer, you run slower, and it becomes a kind of cycle of just getting slower. And actually, you need to do some speed work. You need to do some repetitions. You need to do some fast running. And by doing those repetitions, not only will it help to build your aerobic capacity, VO2 max, if you want to be technical, and because that's something that declines with age, this VO2 max, your aerobic capacity, your ability to get oxygen to your muscles, declines with age. But we can resist that by doing some of this more structured training in terms of interval training, speed work, repetitions. And actually, it's been shown, there's research papers on this, that if you do that stuff, it actually stimulates those hormones. The very hormones that lead to this aging process are stimulated by these weight repetitions and these repetitions of speed, fast running, short repetitions. So these are all things which I would strongly recommend for any runner, really. But if you've got any aspirations of being competitive in racing, whether it's on the fells, the trails, or the road, then you've got to do that kind of stuff. If actually, let's face it, people are running for different reasons. If you just want to enjoy being out there, which is important to all of us, you know, just being out in the hills in beautiful scenery, some stunning scenery not far from here. But if you go to the lakes, Scotland, Wales, you know, you can have some of those stunning scenery anywhere in the world, which is truly inspirational just to be part of it. And if you just want to go and jog and have a good time in that with some mates, then that's great. That's a great end and a great means to an end in its own right. But if you want to compete, and why not? Some of us are competitive beasts. Then you need to kind of structure your training and do some of these things.
So what does a typical week look like for you at the moment, Geoff? What would your training be like this
Okay,
winter?
so a typical week for me, and not in lockdown because I go to a gym in a typical week. So a typical week for me would be Monday, rest. Tuesday, I'll go to the gym to do some weights in the morning. Typically, I would run with Malcop runners in the evening, maybe do around 10k. In the summer, it would be on the hills around there. In the winter, I'd go on the roads because I find that if I'm running in the dark, I start to run too slowly, and you know, all that kind of stuff. Just pressing that. So Wednesday, giving the park run a blast, maybe trying to get down to 21 minutes or even under, which is you know, something that is a challenge for me these days, but you know, motivates me to do that. Bit of a warm down, and it's really sociable. And then on a Sunday, I go for a long run, usually in the fells. At the moment, I'm trying to build up for an event later this year, so I'm doing maybe 17, 18, 20 miles on a Sunday.
Stop, hold on. We've got a Jordana. It appears that we're on mute.
Okay.
Ooh.
I might, because I just put low, I clicked on low power mode. Maybe it's come off that. Hi. So much for technology. There might be one or two people still there. Yeah, I was just finishing off there by saying, for me.
We'll let people come back on. I'll just give it a wee second.
Okay, we're not. Are we on?
Yep, they're coming in here.
Okay.
Just give it a second.
Yeah, sorry about all that, guys. I don't know what happened, but there you go.
You were pressing buttons you shouldn't be pressing.
Yeah, so basically Sunday is that traditional long run for me, which is a hilly run at a slow pace, getting loads of hills in, going to a beautiful part of the country, the Peak District, maybe around Mac Forest, Shutlinslow, you know, kind of Shining Tor, these kind of hills. Fantastic, fantastic places to run, and getting a nice sociable run in. Lots of hills, and maybe 15, 20 miles, something like that. So on a Monday I'd have a rest day because I'll be knackered. So I want to rest, and on a Tuesday I'm not going to run too hard. It'll be, like I say, maybe 5 miles, 10k. I usually go to the gym twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday, for kind of weights and stuff, trying to build that muscle mass and stop it all disappearing as a V60. So that's my basic week. Yeah.
Fantastic. Right, let's talk about some of the fell running legends. So who are the people who have most inspired you over the years? Give us a couple of names.
Okay, can I give a couple of names from the past and maybe some from the modern era?
Absolutely.
Is that okay?
Entertain
So
us.
I think in the past, certainly if you look on the national level, I've got to mention Geoff Snaler in the Lake District, because the guy's a legend. He's in his 80s now, but you know, just an incredible guy who, when he was young, I think 19, was told that he wouldn't be able to walk properly. He had major back problems, but went on to set just about every fell running record there was. So Joss needs a mention. One of I've got many friends obviously in fell running. Quite a few of them are on here now with us, which is great to see. But a guy called Mike Hartley, who set the Pennine Way record back in 1989. I supported him towards the end of that. And he broke he took the record then was just under 3 days, and he took it down to 2 days and 17 hours, and it was just a phenomenal performance. He did lots and lots of other things. He set loads of ultra records and did the first of the 3 great rounds of the UK we mentioned. He did them all consecutively. But on the Pennine Way, that was a record that stood until last year, 2020, when a guy called John Kelly, who is an American living in the UK, broke Mike's 30-odd-year-old Pennine Way record. So jumping then into now, John Kelly is certainly a great runner. Jumping back for a moment, I want to mention a couple of ladies, because I don't want this to be a sexist thing, Kat. So I've got to mention a woman called Helen Diamantides. She's now called Helen Whitaker. Who was awesome, and indeed Anne Stentiford, both setting great records on the ultra stuff in the fells back in the 1980s and early 90s really. Both still fit today. Coming more into recent times, if you're looking at racing, there's a guy local to here, Simon Bailey, who's a fell racer who lives in Rushton Spencer. Was in Staff Smalllands. He's been running for Mercia for many years, but Simon's just a legend. He's won the English Fell Running Championship, I think 7 times or something. He's now a vet 40, but he's a phenomenal runner. And you know, in terms of racing, in terms of the kind of ultra stuff currently, Damien Hall, John Kelly broke Mike Hartley's record that stood on the Pennine Way for 30 odd years. It lasted for a week, the poor guy, you know. He did this phenomenal record-breaking feat, and the previous holder had it for 31 years, Mike, and John held it for a week, and then Damien Hall broke it. Damien is also a phenomenal athlete, and people like Jim Mann, and there's so many. I've got Beth Pascal, who broke the women's Bob Graham record in a phenomenal time of about 14 and a half hours. Killian Jornay, international professional athlete, broke the Bob Graham round. It stood for 35 years or more, set by a guy called Billy Bland. And Killian flew in from Spain, from the Pyrenees, and broke it by about an hour. It was like 13 hours 50, and he did it in something like 12 hours 50. You know, this is for 60 odd miles and the height of Everest. So it's just phenomenal. At the sharp end, you know, what's happening there is unbelievable.
And some great books to read about these guys, aren't there?
Absolutely. And I just want to mention one other, actually, Kat. There's just recently a guy called, well, John Kelly attempted this, and literally like the day later, a guy called Shane Early did the Bob Graham round in winter. And when I say in winter, it was in the real cold spell, so it was short days in January, short days, and snow and ice conditions on his own, so solo, unsupported, on his own, sat with all the stuff in his kit bag, by head torch, you know, with an ice axe, and got round the Bob Graham in what were really more like mountaineering conditions, and in under 24 hours, in fact broke what was the other record, which was set in the mid-80s. So phenomenal stuff happening always in the mountains, but particularly at the moment. I think lockdown has given a lot of these athletes time to train and to you know, to really smash some of those old established records, and it's awesome. Just it's inspiring and awesome.
You mentioned John Kelly. Do you want to just mention about his grand tour?
Yeah, John Kelly is he's a guy who likes to do things in a very purist way and some of the very hardest challenges. And he was inspired by Mike Hartley, the guy I mentioned who set the Pan Am Way in the 1989. And John Kelly was inspired by something else Mike did back in the day, which was Mike did the Ramsey Round in Scotland, the Bob Graham Round in the Lakes, and the Paddy Buckley in Wales. And he just did them consecutively. He set off, did the Ramsey Round, jumped in a car, somebody drove him to the Lakes, and he just got out and ran round the Bob Graham. Then somebody drove him to Wales, and he ran round the Paddy Buckley Round, and it was unbelievable. He did it in like 3 days and, I don't know, 17 hours or something. Just unbelievable. Nobody ever thought or dreamt of ever doing it again until John Kelly came along. And John Kelly tried to go one better by cycling between rather than being driven between. And he called it the Great Tour, the Great Round, or the Great
Grand
Tour.
Round.
The Grand Round, sorry, thanks for the Grand Round. And it's just mind-blowing that you do these, you know, rounds which are of themselves. You know, people sometimes spend a large part of their life trying to get around these things, and some guy comes along, does all three, and cycles between them. And I saw some of the video footage of John as he was finishing on the Ramsey Round on Ben Nevis, and the guy was wasted. He gave it absolutely everything. And that's what I was talking about earlier about, you know, your type 1 enjoyment and your type 2. And then there's always type 3 enjoyment, is when you just didn't enjoy it at all and maybe you shouldn't have done it. But yeah, type 2 is when you reflect back and think that was just, I'm really proud of that.
So
it
do you
was
think
awesome.
that would make a good fell running holiday for you, Geoff, to attempt the Grand Round, maybe over a week?
Yeah, I think the idea, Kat, of the Grand Round being a holiday and doing it in a week sounds leisurely compared to John Kelly's efforts, but I think if it was going to be a holiday for me, I'd probably want a bit more than a week over it, to be honest.
So we talk about the tough patches. What do you think about when you're in a long, hard race and you're going through a really bad patch? What gets you through it?
If it's something that's really long, I know from previous experience that you have bad patches and you have good patches. So part of the mindset is when you have a bad patch, it's not going to last forever. So, and I just know that from experience. Maybe you're not eating enough, so maybe you need to eat some more, get some fuel in, or maybe you've not concentrated on your hydration, you've let yourself get a bit dehydrated. So just taking on board a bit more food or a little bit more liquid, actually talking to yourself a bit, you know, because we all have that thing going on in our minds, you know, that self-talk, and sometimes that can be negative and we can be, you know, putting ourselves down, but actually turning that round into more positive mindset about, you know, how well you are doing, and that this is a temporary situation which will pass, and it does pass. You know, I've done a lot of stuff where it does take a long time, 24 hours, more than 24 hours. But actually, if you're feeling some kind of pain or exhaustion, it doesn't last forever. And that knowledge and that kind of mindset helps you to get through it. Even just saying things to yourself as a kind of mantra, you know, it's a fact that if you say powerful words to yourself, such as strong, fast, powerful, just start saying that and you begin to feel a bit stronger and a bit faster and a bit more powerful. Even if you're trashed, I believe in this stuff, and it works for me. So those are the kind of things that help me.
I'm going to hazard a guess that you're not somebody who listens to music or podcasts when you're out in the fells.
No, I'm a bit of a traditionalist, so I'm not one of these people who wants to listen to any kind of pulsating music, even music that I like, and I do like a lot of music. I want to experience where I am. I want to be in the moment. I'm in beautiful countryside. There might be wildlife, birds, stuff I can hear, people I want to talk to. I don't want to crowd that with other stuff. I don't need music to cut me off from my environment. I don't want podcasts, you know. We're all capable of talking positively to ourselves. We don't need somebody else doing it for us, and it just cuts you off from your environment. So I want to be in the environment. I want to be in the mountains. I want to be in the hills. And I want to experience it in the raw, and whatever it's throwing at you, whether it's a nice day. One of the challenges we haven't really spoken about is weather and what that can throw at you. But you need to experience it in its full rather than try to shut off from it.
Fantastic. So we're about to wrap up. I'm going to ask you one more question, Geoff, and then we'll have a quick look at any questions that are here for us to on Facebook for us to answer. You've got one big challenge coming up.
Yeah.
On the horizon. Do you want to just tell us about it?
Yeah, I entered a race which is called the Dragon's Back. This is something that a lot of my friends, you know, the veteran dinosaurs like me, did back in 1992 when it was first run. But at that time, it was in September, as it is this year, and I'd just got a new job as a head of science in a school, and I couldn't really ask for, you know, a week off to go and do some running in the hills. So I never did it, and it didn't happen for years, and then it was reinstigated, and it's now a 6-day race with an ultra every day. It starts in the north of Wales at Conway Castle, quite an iconic place with incredible views itself, and it takes you over pretty much most of the mountains in Wales, going from north to south. On the first day you do the 15 Welsh 3,000 foot mountains plus a bit more, the Snowdon Horseshoe on top of that. Then you camp, and then the next day you go off and do, and it's basically, you know, a lot of the days you're doing like 70 kilometers a day with a lot of height gain. So this is something that is going to be a massive challenge to me. I expect I'll be probably the oldest person in the race, and as I said before, recovery takes time when you get a bit older. So that idea of you know, running day after day for 6 days, massive distances, massive height gain, and then recovering and do it again, that is going to be one of the biggest challenges of my life. So it's in September, and I'm getting the miles and the height gain in as much as I can, and I need to do a lot more than I'm doing at the moment, to be honest. But yeah, that's my next
Excellent.
big one.
And we're going to track you. Now, Geoff, I just want you to scroll through here, and you'll be able to read some of the comments.
Okay.
As you can down, just see if you recognise any, and any questions. Can you see?
Geoff, can you recommend trainers to reduce shin splints? Yeah, okay, so yeah, that's Dilesh Palmer. Hi, Del. Yeah, Del, you need, I think a lot of your running is on the road, if I can remember, and whether it's on the road or on the trails around where you live in Leek, I'd go for, yeah, Brooks Ghost, fantastic. If you're a pronator, then maybe the Brooks Adrenaline is what you want. But Brooks, yeah, really recommend them. Great, really well cushioned. If you are getting shin splints, the main reasons are you're either increasing your mileage too quickly, or your shoes just aren't cushioned enough. So you need the right cushion shoes, and you need to increase the mileage more slowly. You might find that compression sleeves help as well. It's possible. Got James Mcmurdo asking about recovery times after ultra. Days for days. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you can extend the rest of that. So James is saying there, let me see the rest of that. Whoa, just lost it. Yeah, James, it's absolutely normal. If you're running, you know, I'm not sure, James, what age you are, but for anybody of any age, if you're running a long distance and it's got a lot of ascent in it, this is doing actually it's doing damage to your body, if I'm honest. It is actually damaging your body. It's breaking down muscle fibres. It's depleting every bit of carbohydrate, like glycogen reserves in your liver, your muscles. But it's actually breaking down your muscle. And it takes a lot of recovery. And you can assist that recovery by ensuring that your nutrition is right, in particular protein and carbs. You need to be getting protein and carbs down your neck rapidly as soon as you finish, and the protein will help your body to rebuild your muscles, and the carbs will replace all that depleted glycogen. But yeah, it doesn't just take days. Sometimes it'll take weeks, depending on how demanding the ultra is. It takes a lot of time, and if I look on this on the web, you'll find some more information about it. But yeah, you're going to feel knackered, and it's going to take time. So you need to recover properly and build up those distances. Rick, would you recommend becoming competent as a runner on road before heading off piste? No, not necessarily, Rick. I think if you really want to head off road, it's horses for courses. I love road running as well. Yeah, I love doing half marathons and stuff, 5k even, as fast as I can. But it's what does it for you. And if the hills attract you, if that inspires you, then just go and do it. There's no need to become some super duper half marathon or 10k or 5k runner. Just go and walk in the hills. That's how I started. Walk up the hills, jog on the top, jog down, enjoy yourself in beautiful terrain on a nice day. So just go and do it.
Great. So any other questions? I think we've...
Yeah.
I think there were a couple on the other...
James, 44 is a great age, right? You're at your peak. Absolutely.
On the other video, before we had a little interlude, there was a question about blowing the whistle. You blow it 3 times.
No, 6.
6 times.
Six
Sorry,
times. You
6
wait.
times.
You blow it. If you're stuck in the mist on the hills, or you've broken your ankle, the internationally accepted signal in the mountains is 6 blasts on
That's
your
where
whistle.
I went wrong. I had to use it once.
Leave it a minute. Cat gave the wrong number of blasts and nobody came, and then another 6 and leave it a minute.
Well,
and
this is a question. Here's a question that came out the last time. It's a good one actually. I had to blow it because I'd led a whole fell race astray. Everybody followed me as I was flying along in the wrong direction. Do you expect other runners, and should you, if somebody blows a whistle, go to somebody's rescue? If you hear the whistle blowing as a runner in the race, or do you leave it to the stewards to attend to that person? What's the etiquette in a race?
Right, I can only tell you what my etiquette is, but the spirit of fell running is what I am going to say. And the spirit of that is kind of the spirit of the mountains and more the mountaineer. And there might be some exceptions, which I might mention in a minute. But basically, you would look after your fellow runner. If somebody goes down, they fall on rocks, they've clearly injured themselves, or they've gone over on their ankle and they can't move, you ask them if they're okay. I mean, it might be a stupid question, but sometimes you can fall over and you are okay. It's just you fall over a bit of grass, you're okay, you get up and you carry on. Sometimes people fall over and they're not okay. And they can cause some significant damage. So you go and ask them and talk to them and see and make sure they are okay. And if it's in a race, you might lose a few seconds, or you might lose a few minutes, or you might sacrifice the race. But actually, that's more important than leaving somebody, because actually when you fall over, if you can't move, if you're immobile, or if you can only move slowly or walk, what happens is you cool down. And if you're on a high hill or a mountain, you cool down quickly. The weather can change. If you're a fell runner, you've probably got pretty light kit. It's very dangerous because your big enemy is hypothermia. And hypothermia is not just about being cold. It's actually your core body temperature plummets, and it is dangerous and can actually be fatal. And sadly, there are people who have and do die both in races and when they're out training in conditions which are inclement, and something goes wrong. Sometimes they might be on their own, sometimes they might be in a race, they've gone off the course, or maybe somebody didn't stop or whatever. These things happen, and it's really important to support. I talked about that spirit of fell running, and some of it comes from mountaineering. Supporting people who are in difficulty comes for me before anything else.
So I am wholly inspired to go and sign up to another fell race as soon as
Fantastic.
there are some on the agenda, and we'll definitely be chatting to Mac and getting some advice from the fell running group there as well. So thank you everybody for joining us, and most importantly, thank you very much, Geoff, for an insightful, fascinating and entertaining hour.
It's my pleasure, and it's great to see a lot of familiar faces there. So thank you, folks, for turning out and supporting the event.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Kat.
Bye.
Thanks.